You've waited all week for it, and now it's time to wind down and chill with Grit Daily.
Hey everyone, welcome to Wind Down and Chill in the podcast. And we've got a special guest today. We've got Leslie Frank. She's the proprietor of Frank Family Vineyards over from Napa Valley. She's also heavily involved in the Napa Valley Festival as a member of the board of directors. She's also very active in raising monies to try to help key causes like breast cancer and Feeding America. So with that, let's give Leslie a warm welcome. Hey, Leslie.
Hi, Loralyn. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I appreciate it.
Well, we wanted to just get a little bit of background. Maybe you could take a moment or so and introduce us to Frank Family Vineyards.
Frank Family Vineyards, located in Calistoga in Napa Valley. The story behind Frank Family Vineyards goes back about 28 years now, when my husband, Rich Frank, who was studio executive at Disney, started spending time in Napa Valley. That started with the purchase of a house. Then it led to becoming friends with Colonel Rombauer of Rombauer Winery. And together they bought a small winery. And that was back in 1992. So the winery was initially called Frank Rombauer. And in the year 2000, it became a little challenging from a brand standpoint because people were looking at my husband, Rich Frank, saying, "Oh, you're Frank Rombauer." The name was confusing. Thought it was best to sort of part ways as friends, of course, and Rich bought Kerner out of his part of the winery, and it became Frank Family Vineyards. So that's sort of the history of Frank Family. Where do I come into play? I met my husband in 2006. I was working as a television journalist in Los Angeles for ABC, and I was born and raised in Canada. Napa was a place for me that I would love to come and visit and taste wine and do what everybody does when they come here, learn about wine, go to the delicious restaurants and just have that getaway from the hustle and bustle and fast pace of the broadcasting world. And so we fell in love with Napa separately, but we fell in love in Napa.
Now, tell us a little bit about Lady Edith, the matriarch, and for whom the Premium Reserve Brut bubbles are named after.
So this is a project that is really near and dear to my heart and obviously my husband's heart, because Lady Edith was Rich's mother. And we lost her back in 2011, but she was a lady. She was a role model, but she was a charitable woman, and she taught her children, her two sons, to be charitable. We decided when we were making a reserve sparkling wine, a wine that we wanted to rest on the lees, and we're hoping to get to 10 years before we release it, we wanted to do something special. And so when we created that wine, we named it after Rich's mom, and we called it Lady because she was a lady.
Speaking of strong women and women in wine, you are quoted in the Wine Country Woman of Napa book, and you've been on the scene for long enough. Can you tell us, and especially, as a journalist and reporter, Leslie, you've seen a few things. Can you tell us how the role of women, and in fact, just women in general with respect to access and visibility within Napa Valley has changed over the years?
Well, I think it has changed and it's continuing to change, but I think we've seen that growth and that change happen pretty significantly in the last few years since women like yourself, Loralyn, and myself have sort of been getting together and having these conversations about advancing women and supporting each other. I think that there's never been support for women like there is today, and it's a beautiful thing to see. We're seeing more women winemakers. We're seeing women winemakers profiled, which I think is important. And I think that it sends a message to other women in the industry that you don't just have to work in the sales or the marketing department in a winery. You can do what has traditionally been a male-dominated area and become a winemaker. Women are a force, and we're not going away, and we're going to be taking these roles that have been traditionally male-dominated.
And why not, right? So what trends are you seeing in wine right now?
Well, let's talk about COVID for a second, because that sort of changed everything that we do. When the winery was shut down in the middle of March due to COVID, we all kind of took a moment and said, all right, this is not just affecting our business. This is changing our business and how we connect with the consumer. The consumer's not coming to us anymore because they can't. So how do we go to the consumer, and how do we stay connected, and how do we have interaction with them? So we're doing that through virtual tastings, and we will connect them with one of our wine educators to do a Zoom meeting where they're doing it from the comfort of their own home, and they're getting that one-on-one attention. No, they're not coming to Napa Valley. They're not in the Napa Valley surroundings, but they feel like they're getting a taste of Napa, literally, with wines from Napa, but also with that attention that they would get if they come to a winery and receive that sort of hospitality.
Now, one of the things I was curious about with respect to COVID is that knowing that philanthropy is such a key part behind, like you said, Rich Frank and his history and your efforts, how are things changing with respect to donation and contribution here in this mid-COVID world? And how do you think they'll change in a post-COVID world?
Well, I think it's challenging because we've had to postpone Festival Napa Valley this year, which is performing arts festival in Napa Valley, which draws people from all over the Bay Area and really from all over the country. So you've seen the postponement of a lot of large events that people make a point of traveling to attend. But at the same time, you're seeing some organizations conduct virtual auctions. I don't know that you can generate the same kind of enthusiasm as you can when people are in person and they're enjoying wine and there's a big group and there's, that excitement in the room. But we're certainly going to try. So are we planning on raising as much money this year? Probably not, but we can't just shelve it all till next year. We have to put a plan in place and do what we can to continue to raise money for these much needed programs. We're seeing restaurants across the country close, and it's sad because people are losing their jobs. It's hard to watch. And we feel that as a winery because they have done so much for us and our brand. We sell to those restaurants. They promote our wines. They sell our wines and introduce our wines to people who may never have tasted them. So this fall, we're doing our part as a winery to try to give back to those people. And we're doing it through the James Beard Foundation's campaign in response to COVID to help support the independent restaurants survive this crisis and rebuild better and thrive for the long term. So we will be donating a percentage of each bottle of Cabernet that is purchased either at the winery or on our website.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love hearing about that stuff. So moving along then, one other thing that I'm really curious about, and I know our listeners are too, is that you are one of the few female execs. Now, it's a growing number with respect to leadership positions in wineries. So we're curious, do you have advice that you'd like to share with other women who are considering a similar path?
I believe that if you follow your passion, success will follow you. Look, I said my background is television news. I was a journalist for 26 years before I left the industry. Between Rich and myself, we oversee all the departments. We have a general manager. He's our winemaker as well, Todd Graff. But I oversee marketing and hospitality because I feel that that's where my strengths are. So I think you follow what your passion is and what your strengths are. And in the areas that go along with the job where you may feel you're not as strong, do what you can to better yourself. I have taken executive wine management courses at UC Davis. I have studied wine through the WSET program, just finished level 3. Oh my God, it was very difficult.
Not easy.
It's not easy, no. And the funny thing is I dragged Rich along with me and he looked at me and he said, it was the in-class portion was the worst. He said, "This is the worst week of my life. Why did you make me do this?" I said, "I didn't make you do anything, but I'd signed up for it." And so he said, "Well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it." So a little bit of competitiveness there, I think, which was great, but it was super informative and something I wish we had done a while ago. But not to digress here, I think the key is to continue to better yourself. You can always learn. The industry is always changing, and you never know when something like a health pandemic, COVID, is going to come along and force you to change what you're doing and what you're comfortable with.
Now, last question, Leslie. What do you wish that people knew about Frank Family Wines?
That Frank family doesn't just mean those in the family with the last name Frank. the family extends to the people who work for us. We have staff members who have been with us since they were packing boxes in the shipping department and attending St. Helena High School. And they have put themselves through college and they have learned about wine. And now they are wine educators working for us. And we have watched some of those employees get married and they're on their second babies now. And they've literally grown up with Frank Family, and they have such a loyalty to the company. And I think it makes me proud because Rich and I look at each other and we feel like, you know what, we've done something right. We must be all right because people want to work for us and they're still here and they've been here for a long time. We have employees that have been with us in the production area from the very beginning. So we're talking 27, 28 years now. So that makes me feel good. And so I guess the question, what do I want people to know about Frank Family, is that family is what we do through and through.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for taking the time today to introduce us to Frank Family Vineyards and all of the values that you folks are holding there with respect to philanthropy, with respect to family first, and really creating a community that helps others. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Loralyn, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Follow us at Grit Daily on social media and listen to all of our podcasts, including Like a Boss on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, or your favorite platform. For special guest submissions, email Loralyn at gritdaily.com.